everyone. Today we just dropping a class, no need, nothing important, but it's well needed. Today we're gonna come to y'all with a class called Humble Thyself, because we know in the nation of Israel, us men are leaders, right? And certain sisters are to be leaders over certain sisters, right? But we have a problem with how we treat each other and overdoing things, but humble yourselves. Real quick, let me get the definition of humble for you. Humble means having or showing a modest, respectful, or low esteem of one's own importance. You could have put that on Stephen too. Importance. Here are some of the synonyms: meek and respectful. So it lets you know that we have to be meek and respectful with each other, but a lot of us have a problem with that, especially in the nation of Israel. We have a problem with how we deal with each other, how we deal with our brothers and sisters. We feel like because, I don't know, anywhere you go, they feel like if they have a little bit of a title on them, they can deal with you how you want to. The Most High, He don't play it like that. Yes, you have to be hard on some brothers, but know who to be hard on. Yes, there's some brothers you can just talk to and they get it. It clicked to them. So you have to know the difference. You got to be able to differentiate between those brothers. From there, let's open up with Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3.
Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves.
So Philippians chapter 2 verse 3 says, let nothing be done through strife. So let's get what strife means. Strife means anger or bitter disagreement over fundamental issues, conflict. So you should not be having conflict with your brother, right? You should know how to deal with each other. Y'all should know how to talk to each other, right? And it says, our vain glory, inordinate pride in oneself, or one's achievement, excessive vanity. The Most High don't want us dealing with each other in those kind of ways. He says, but in lowliness meaning of humbleness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Meaning, okay, you see this brother, he might not have a high rank, but just because he ain't got a high rank don't mean be tough on him. Yeah, well, it's some brothers, I ain't gonna lie to you, gotta be tough on them, because they can just play games and slack. But if you see that brother really doing his due diligence and really being a servant of the Most High, don't make it harder than it already is. So humble thyself. Let's get Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1.
Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1. And it reads, a soft answer turneth away wrath.
So a soft answer can turn away wrath, right? That means you and the brother, y'all could have, it could have been something y'all didn't see eye to eye with. It could have been like, hey brother, listen, you ain't clean that dish right. It just is an error. You ain't clean that dish right. Well, brother, I ain't so used to washing dishes where I'm from. At a time, as us being leaders, we got to step up and show that, brother. We got to humble ourselves and be like, listen, I'm going to stand next to you and I'm going to show you how to do these dishes. I'm not holding your hands, but I'm going to show you step by step. You said you're not really used to this. Well, let me show you. So I'm going to show you, okay, you use this and you clean the dish this way. Right then, you just defeated that purpose of having that strife and that vain glory. And the Most High really respect brothers who humble themselves. He really do. We're going to see. Give me Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 12. Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 12.
Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 12. Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 12. And it reads, he that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace.
So the Most High said, he that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor. So that's it. Every time you turn around, this man, you can tell that he's very prideful. He has no understanding whatsoever. He don't have no understanding. That means this brother has to be right in everything he say. Like he can't be wrong. It's always going to be a conflict with that brother because you don't know how to go and talk to him. He's not a humble brother. But he said, but a man of understanding holding his peace. He's showing you that a wise man who has understanding would know to hold his peace. If this brother coming and talk to me, it got to be something serious. Something that's really been on his mind messing with him. Now I got to humble myself and know how to deal with the situation. I can't be, hey brother, I don't want to hear that stuff. It's not going to work like that. You can't. Also, a person full of pride always exalt themselves, make themselves higher than everyone else, showing humbleness, showing no humbleness at all. He don't want to come low. He don't want to be in a position to where he really have to show this brother. He always feel like, man, this brother better get up out my face. Nah, man, it don't work like that. Let's get Matthew chapter 23 and verse 12. See how the Most High feel about that brother who always act like he can't come down to a low and humble estate.
Matthew chapter 23 verse 12. Matthew chapter 23 verse 12. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted.
So for you brothers out there, or even sisters out there who like to exalt yourself, make yourself higher than everybody else, like you can't do no wrong, you shall become abased. You shall become low. You already know there's no lowness in the kingdom, right? So you shall come abased. He said, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So when you humble yourself, because the Most High is watching, we know that. There's nothing we can hide from him. He see what true humbleness and meekness is. He see that. He said, then he will exalt you. So let the Most High be the one to exalt you. Don't be the one all the time. You just got to be exalted. You walk in the room, and he better say something good about me. She over there, she better dang sure say something good about me. I'm going to tell her how I feel. You can't be like that. Okay, let's get into some more. For you brothers and sisters out there, keep not being humble with no kind of sense of how to deal with others and being overly prideful. Keep doing that and keep being that way. All right, let's see what the Most High said again. James 4 and 6.
James chapter 4 and verse 6. James chapter 4 and verse 6. And it reads, but he giveth more grace, wherefore he said, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble.
So he said, but he giveth more grace. The Most High giveth more grace. Wherefore he said, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace unto the humble. So the Most High giving the grace unto the humble, not the proud, no understanding, void of understanding man. The Most High, I'm trying to tell you right here, the Most High said that he's giving grace unto the humble, the one who lower himself, the one who know how to deal with a brother or sister, the one who know in times to use wisdom when certain situations come around. So there's not always conflict. When you have a school out there, you other schools, you're supposed to know how to deal with your people. You're supposed to know how to deal with your members. That's how you run a school properly, with the humbleness. Humbleness is not telling you to be soft. Not at all. It's telling you to know how to deal, though. Let's get a story. So let's get a story on humbleness. Let's go to Luke chapter 18 and verse 9. Let's get Luke chapter 18 and verse 9. Get a little story on some humbleness.
Luke chapter 18 verse 9. Luke chapter 18 and verse 9. And it reads, and he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous, and despised others.
Uh-huh.
2 men went up into the temple to pray. The one a Pharisee and the other a publican.
So two men went up into the temple to pray, confess their sins to the Most High. One was a Pharisee, letting other was a publican. So the Pharisees would be the one in a higher position, right? Publican would be up under him.
The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men, are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican.
So off rip, he messing up. Did he show humbleness in that situation? No. The first thing he went up there doing is being a selfish person, praying all about himself, right? Not being in consideration of that brother. Like, don't make me like this publican. Read.
I fast twice in the week. I give tithe of all that I possess.
So now he also went to doing a prideful thing. Now he's boasting on his accomplishments. He's telling Most High, I fast twice out of the weeks. I also give you everything of my tithe. This is what he's doing. Keep that in mind. 13.
And the publican standing afar off would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God be merciful to me, a sinner.
So the first thing the publican did, he was so shameful that he brought himself so to a low and humble estate, he couldn't lift his eyes up. He was so sore. And being humble, he was like, dang, man. What he did was he broke his spirit. But let's see how Most High feel about that. Verse 14.
I tell you, this man went down to his house, justified, rather than the other. For everyone that exalted himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted.
So the Most High, Yahweh shall say, I tell you, this man, the publican man, went down to his house justified. He was justified more than the other man. So the Pharisee sat up there and he had that prideful, not being humble spirit and went to bashing this man. Yahweh was like, okay, let's see how this is going to play out. That publican right there, he's going to be justified. But you're not going to be. Then he finished it off with saying, for everyone that exalted himself, making himself higher than the next, shall be abased. So he brought him low. And he said, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. So the publican got exalted, got lifted up over this Pharisee. All right. Okay, now give me Proverbs 16 to 18. We got to learn how to start being more humble. We got to know how to be humble, because we can't. Yeah, it's good to be humble to each other, but most important person to be humble to or be humble before is the Most High. We're going to get into that later. But give me Proverbs 16 to 18.
Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 18. Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 18. And it reads, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Salakia.
So pride goes before destruction. This prideful man is nothing. Everything in his path is destruction. Because a prideful man, you can't tell him nothing, right? So even if you come to him humbly trying to tell him his wrongs, his faults, he won't listen. Next thing you know, he in all kind of destruction. Trouble coming his way each and every way. And he don't understand. That's why he said, all right, that's why he said, in a haughty spirit before a fall. You're going to fall in your ways because you can't listen. You're so hard-headed and you're so stubborn, you act like nobody can't tell you nothing. That's that prideful spirit. That man do not want to humble himself. The Most High not dealing with you when your spirit is that prideful. You're setting yourself up for destruction. Do you know when you humble yourselves, the Most High will uplift you himself? Well, let's get that in James chapter 4, verse 10. See what it says in James.
James chapter 4 and verse 10. James chapter 4 and verse 10. And it reads, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up.
So the Most High is looking down, seeing and knowing that you know how to deal with brothers. And humbling yourselves to the Most High as well. Humbling yourselves to the Most High, before him, keeping his laws and commandments. You're showing that, all right, listen, I'm under submission, Most High. I respect you, and I'm going to keep your laws and commandments. But he sees both ways. He see that you know how to deal with your brother, and he see that I'm going to also be humble unto you, Heavenly Father, by keeping your laws and commandments. In that case, he will uplift you. He will exalt you and set you. He will put you on high. Because he knows you know how to humble yourself. Also, a humble brother will have these kind of attributes. Let me get Ephesians 4 and 2. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 2. All right. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 2. With all lowliness, with all humbleness and meekness, again being humble and respectful, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love. So this brother who's very humble, he would have these attributes of him. He would know how to be, he'll know how to be humble, he'll know how to be respectful, he would know to be long suffering with you. That don't mean that every time this brother, he doing the same thing over and over. That mean you see this brother trying, he might mess up, but hey man, listen man. You need to tighten up, man. You know how the Most High is. But I'm being humble on you because the Heavenly Father's been humble on me. So get yourself together, brother. So that's some of the attributes you have, right? So now let's go to, stay in chapter 4 and let's go to 31. Verse 31.
Verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice.
Give me 32.
And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you.
So he said, let all bitter. I mean, you got to be honest. You just know some brothers who come in the truth, they bitter as hell. Type of brother you see, I'm saying they bitter as hell. Type of brother, you having fun, he don't want you to have fun. I mean, what y'all over there laughing about? We can't laugh? That's a bitter as hell brother. And he always with wrath and anger. Every time you turn around, hey man, look, I'm sick of this, man. You getting on my nerve? Hold on, bro, just pump your brakes. You still dealing with a man. Remember that. Clamor and evil speaking. Don't be down on that brother. Don't be harsh with your words. He said, put away from you with all malice. And be you kind to one another. So you're supposed to have that kindness. It's true brotherly love. Tender-hearted. Forgiving one another. Because some brothers, y'all could have had a little misunderstanding. But this one brother would not be forgiving. But you got to understand, in order to be forgiven, you must forgive. So you brothers got to really understand that humbling yourself, it comes with being attributes. Okay? This is why it is good to be humble. To humble yourselves and be humble in the sight of the Most High. Give me 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6.
1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 6. And it reads, Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time.
So you want to humble yourself. You want to know, okay, when it comes to humble myself, let me study these scriptures and find out what it is. Let me look up that word humble so that I know how to be humble, so I know how to deal. Not only with my brothers, but let me also study to see how I can be humble before in the sight of the Most High. Why? So in due time he shall exalt me. So he can exalt me. This is why it's good to be humble. Give me 2 Chronicles chapter 7 and verse 14. See what else the Most High got to say. Some steps he told us to go by.
2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. And it reads, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land.
So the Most High said, if my people, which are called by my name, you of the nation of Israel, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians of a Negroid descent, he said, you are my people. You're called by my name. If you shall humble yourselves, not only to your brothers who are around you, but humble yourself to me as well, and pray, because you must pray. And seek my face, you must study. And turn from the wicked ways, you must repent. Then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land. So, also in order with praying, fasting, and repenting, you got to be humble. He listed that in there. You must, being humble is a must. So do your studies, but also know how to deal with your brothers. Also know that you better be humble in the sight of the Most High. You'll get put to death. The Most High is not a joke. Now give me 1 Peter 5 and 5. Time to deal with ourselves, nation of Israel. That's why the scriptures say, examine thyself.
First Peter chapter 5 verse 5. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 5. Likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. And submit yourselves to the elder. Yea, all of you being subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble.
So the Most High said, likewise, ye younger, who's in the congregation, submit yourselves to your elders. But he said, yea, to all of you, be in subject to one another and be clothed with humility. Be clothed with being humble to each other. Knowing how to deal with each other. That's what the Most High told us to do. Then if we do that, he said, for God resisteth the proud. He don't like the proud. And giveth grace to the humble. He will give you grace. But don't be humble and see if you can find or you can get that grace. It's not going to happen. So you better wake up and do what the Most High asked you to do. You should always be humble and do what the Most High say. You should always do that. Let me get Micah 6 and 8.
Micah chapter 6 and verse 8. Micah chapter 6 and verse 8. He hath shewed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love, and to walk humbly with thy God.
So he said, he hath shown thee, O man, what is good. What is good for your sakes. What is good for your sakes. And what doth the Lord require of thee? What are some of the things that the Most High require you to do, but to do justly, to keep his laws and commandments, and to love mercy. You better love that mercy and give mercy back to your brother, and to walk humbly with thy God. What does he mean? What does he mean by walking humbly with him? Well, let's get that. Let's go to Deuteronomy 10 and 12.
Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12. Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12. And now Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul.
Give me 13.
To keep his commandments, to keep the commandments of the Lord, and his statutes which I command thee this day for thy good.
So the Most High told you, this is how you're going to be humble before in his sight. He says, to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, keeping the commandments is what that's all saying, and to serve the Lord thy God, still keeping his commandments with all thy heart and with all thy soul. And 13 goes off to say to keep the commandments of the Lord and statutes which I command thee this day. So that's how you're going to be humble before the Lord. You're going to be humble in his sight at all times by doing these things, keeping his laws and commandments, right? All right. Not humbling yourselves to the Most High and being disobedient. We all know what happened. We all know what happens when it happens, right? Deuteronomy 28 and 15. When you're not being humble to him, that's what happens.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. And it reads, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So not listening to the Most High, not being humble to him, and not being obedient and being disobedient, this is what happened. We went into captivity because we would not hearken, we would not listen. We was being some disobedient people and not humbling ourselves before the Most High who created us and gave us everything. He had us in a high position. Then from there, this is what happened. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 44.
Verse 44. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
So that's the part I wanted out of there. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Your enemies shall be your head. And now you should come to the bottom and be the tail because you would not listen. You would not humble yourself before the Most High. So once again, we went on how to deal with your brother and being humble. Being humble, but now we get into being humble and listening to the Most High. So you have to humble yourself to the Father. Or what happened back then, he's going to do it again. But this time, you're going to get put to death. The Most High not a joke. And from there, we went into captivity for being disobedient. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 47.
Verse 4, where?
47.
Verse 47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
Just the top of 48.
Therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies.
And that's what happened because our people was not being humble before the sight of the Most High. So the Most High told you you can't be humble with your brother, you won't find grace. You won't be humble with me, I showed you what will happen if you won't be humble to me. I'm going to send you behind into captivity where you will have to serve your enemies. So overall, this lesson is be humble, nation of Israel, to your brothers and sisters. Know how to deal with them. Be humble before the Most High God, or he's going to deal with you. He's going to deal with you. Put you behind the death, and we already in captivity right now. So let's be humble with each other and learn how to deal with each other. That's all I had to say. Let me get Matthew chapter 26 and verse 6.
Matthew chapter 26 verse 6. And it reads, Now when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when the disciples saw it, they had indignation, to saying, What purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. But when Yahushua understood it, he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought the good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment upon my body. For in that she poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this woman have done be told for a memorial of her.
So before the Most High, before Yahushua, the Messiah Christ was getting ready to be put to death, a sister came and did a righteous act for him, a righteous work, pouring some ointment on his body for his burial. Letting you sisters know that you have an important part in the nation of Israel. Just play your part. You're more than just bed breakers, baby makers, and bed wenches. You have an important part, sis. So just play your part. with that, I hope this class was very edifying. I hope that it helped some of you out there in leaderships in other schools to humble yourselves and know how to deal with your people. So with that, I'm going to say shalom.
Shalom.